Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you all the essential knowledge about Adobe Premiere Pro that I can fit into just 10 minutes. This tutorial is designed specifically for beginners, so let's jump right in by launching Premiere Pro. Alright, Premiere Pro has finished loading. We're working with 2023 version, so depending on when you're watching this, your interface might appear slightly different from what you're seeing on my screen. Our first step will be creating a fresh project by heading to the upper left section of the screen and selecting New Project. We'll need to assign a name to our project, so I'll simply call this one Premiere Pro Beginner. And then we need to specify where we want this project to be saved. Once that's done, all that remains is hitting the Create button. And just like that, we have our very first project established.
There's a good chance your project interface will resemble what you're seeing here. If your screen doesn't match this layout, you can navigate to the upper right corner where you'll find the Workspaces section and select the Editing option there. Now we need to bring some content into our project. This content might consist of video files, photographs, or whatever materials you plan to use in your editing work. Before importing anything though, I'm going to establish a folder to keep these assets organized. To accomplish this, I'll go to the lower left corner and select the New Bin option, which generates a bin within our project panel. And when I say project panel, I'm referring to this specific area you see here. I'll label this bin B-roll, and then I'm going to open it by double-clicking. Right-click within the empty space and choose Import from the menu. I'll be importing these two video clips right here. Then I'll hit Open, and you can observe how they appear in the project panel. What we want to next is establish a sequence. In simple terms, a sequence is essentially where you arrange your clips together on a single timeline to construct a video from those individual clips. One method for establishing a sequence is to simply take the footage you have and drag it down onto the timeline, which is this panel area here. When we complete that action, our footage appears on the timeline as a layer, and we can also view it in our playback monitor as we move the playhead across this layer. The playhead is simply this element I'm dragging along the timeline. So we've successfully created our first sequence, which will now appear in the project panel. This is our sequence, and the two clips on the left are the original footage we imported earlier. Now, since we created a sequence using this particular footage, when we navigate to the top menu bar and select Sequence, followed by Sequence Settings, these configuration options match the exact settings of the footage we initially dragged onto the timeline. If we wanted to modify our sequence settings, perhaps we'd like to adjust the frame dimensions to 1920 by 1080, which would mean converting from 4K resolution down to 1080p. We'd confirm this by clicking OK, and you'll notice it crops in somewhat on our footage. Now our sequence is actually running at 1920 by 1080. However, I'm going to reverse that change because we're going to maintain our sequence at the original 4K resolution. At this point, I want to bring the second piece of footage onto the timeline, so we're not just looking at this water footage, but also have this desert clip to work with. I'll select the desert and position it in our timeline adjacent to the existing footage. As you can observe when we play it back, there's a pleasant transition occurring between the water shot and the desert shot. Now I'm going to explain some fundamental tools that will help you begin your editing journey. Let's begin with the Selection tool, which is the tool you'll find yourself using the majority of the time while working in Premiere. This tool essentially enables you to perform almost any action and click on virtually anything. For instance, if we wanted to trim this first clip so it concludes at the exact point where the playhead currently sits, all we need to do is grab the edge of this clip and pull it back to the playhead position, and it will terminate where the playhead is located. Now, as your clip didn't automatically snap to the playhead position like mine just did, then you simply need to activate this Snap in Timeline button, and then your clip should lock into place. We can also pull this clip over so there's no empty black space separating the clips, and we maintain that smooth transition between the two. Rather than dragging things over manually, just to save yourself a bit of time, you can also click in this empty space, which will highlight in white, and you can press backspace to remove the space. That's just a handy little trick to know. Let's progress to the next tool, which is the Track Select Forward tool. Essentially what this tool does, and I'll duplicate this layer just to give you another demonstration here, is if you wanted to select these two clips simultaneously, you could click and drag your mouse across them.
But if you have numerous clips stacking up and you're working with an extensive timeline, then that approach becomes significantly more challenging. So instead, what you can do is utilize the Track Forward Select tool, or you can press A on your keyboard, which will select everything positioned to the right of where you click. If we click and hold on the Track Forward Select tool, you'll also notice the Track Select Backward option, which is fundamentally the same concept, just operating in the opposite direction. Perfect. Let's remove these now. Let's click and hold on the Ripple Edit tool, and we'll see the Rate Stretch tool appear. So the Rate Stretch tool is actually quite powerful. Let's imagine we want to accelerate this clip a bit because it's moving rather slowly. With our Rate Stretch tool selected, and you can also press R on the keyboard to access it, just drag from the end point of this clip, and let's move to here. And as you'll observe, the clip is now playing back very quickly. So essentially, it increases the speed when you compress it. If you want to decelerate a clip, you can extend this outward, and now that clip is playing extremely slowly. Excellent, we're making progress. The Remix tool I'll return to in a moment, but let's continue to the Razor tool below this, which simply enables you to create cuts in your footage wherever you need them. Then below that, we have the Pen tool, which essentially allows you to sketch whatever you want across your footage, and when you use this, it creates a layer on your timeline. I'm just going to delete that for now.
Finally, with the tools, we have the Type tool, which you'll probably use quite frequently. You just click on the screen, and then you can enter some text. We'll type desert, and as you can observe, we get some text appearing on our screen. If we hold down Control while clicking, you can reposition it to the center, and it will snap to the center position with those little alignment guides appearing. But you know, this text is somewhat boring and uninspiring, so I'm going to navigate over to the Effect Controls panel, expand the Text section, and I'm going to modify the source text to a typeface called TT Comments. Then I'm going to increase the size to 400 to make it significantly larger, and now as you can see, we have a much more substantial font. We can drag it while holding Control to position that in the center. I'm also just going to scroll down here where you can see you have the option to add a stroke, so if you wanted perhaps a pink stroke around your text, you could apply that. You can add a shadow effect to your text as well, and there you have it, text overlaying your video. Now, let's imagine you want to have the text fade in gradually. All you need to do is navigate over to your Effects panel, or you can press Shift-7 to access it. Go to Video Transitions, expand the Dissolve category, and then you can drag a cross dissolve onto the beginning of your text layer in the timeline. Now, I'm actually going to double-click this transition and extend it longer so you can clearly see the effect in the playback monitor, and it fades in smoothly. Now, let's enhance this text a bit further. I want it to have some movement to it, so I'm actually going to create a simple animation, and this technique is called keyframing. When you're keyframing, it's essentially a basic animation where you establish a starting point and an ending point. What we're going to do is position ourselves at the beginning of this text layer, and I'm going to navigate over to the Effect Controls, and I'm going to click this small stopwatch icon for Toggle Animation. We're going to do that for the Scale property. And as you can observe, now we have a small keyframe indicator that appears right here. If you're uncertain whether you're positioned on that keyframe, you can use the right and left arrow buttons to check. Right now, we're not positioned on it because this is grayed out. But if we go left one keyframe, then it becomes active, and we have our active keyframe right here. So I'm going to reduce the scale down to 50, which means the text will appear smaller when it initially starts. And then we'll move to the end of our text layer here in the timeline. And I'm actually going to go one keyframe to the left, and I'm going to scale it back up to 100. Now, as you can see, if we play this animation back, Desert is scaling upward with our desert footage in the background.
Great, that looks beautiful, but this is a linear scaling effect. It's just somewhat boring with that one-to-one scaling motion. So what I'm going to do is select both of these keyframes back in the Effect Controls panel by clicking on one, holding Shift, and clicking on the other. Then I'll right-click and select Ease In. Now, so you can see what that actually accomplished, I'll undo that action. You can see that's the linear scale right there. When I apply Ease In, the scale is no longer linear. It's significantly smoother. And I'm also going to apply Ease Out, so we have a very fluid transition here. Now, if we play this back, it begins slowly, accelerates in the middle, and then gradually concludes. So it's much more dynamic. One technique that I really enjoy using with these zoom animations is clicking on this final keyframe and clicking and dragging this small handle inward while making sure we maintain the line flat. And as you can observe, it starts quickly and then decelerates. So that's a really dynamic keyframe animation technique that I utilize quite frequently. If you're having difficulty with this zoom technique and you want to learn additional details about how to execute it, you can check out this video above. Now let's imagine we want to alter the color on this background footage. Let's say we want it to appear much more vibrant, just somewhat more saturated. Let's navigate over to the Effects panel and enter Lumetri Color in the search box, and then we'll drag this effect onto our background layer. As you can observe, in our Effects panel, now we have a new effect, the Lumetri Color effect, and I'm just going to expand Basic Correction here. There's significantly more depth to this feature, but all I'm going to do is adjust the saturation and increase that value. So when we bring that up to 175, now we transform from this still attractive-looking desert, but somewhat muted in comparison to this almost fantastical-looking desert. And that's the power of Lumetri Color. I use it in nearly every project I work on. Now let's say we want to incorporate some music into our edit. I actually have a music folder that I'm just going to bring in here, and let's choose a calm track. I'm going to zoom out on my timeline just so we can see the complete picture by pressing minus. You can also zoom into the timeline by pressing plus, but now I'll drag this audio layer down to one of the audio tracks. These are the audio tracks located below this dividing line, and everything above represents video tracks. So I'll position it onto the first audio track, and now as you can hear, we have some pleasant music accompanying our beautiful shots. But this is where the remix tool that I mentioned earlier comes into play. Why would we want the music to extend this long? It's just a bit too lengthy for our footage. We could go into the footage and simply make a cut here and end it, but that's somewhat abrupt. So we're actually going to be using Adobe's remix tool to shorten this for us automatically. If we click on the audio and drag it to the end point of the desert clip, it'll perform some clip analysis, and then, just like that, now our audio concludes pretty much where our clip concludes. Now, it's not absolutely perfect, but this gets you close enough to where you can make the fine-tuning adjustments that you need in your music selections later.
Now let's say we want to reduce the volume of this audio. We can right-click on this, navigate to Audio Gain, and let's enter -5. Now, as you can observe, the waveforms have decreased in height and become smaller, which indicates it's significantly quieter. So that's everything we have time to cover. But if you made it through and grasped most of what was presented in this video, then you're already well on your way to becoming an excellent video editor. I hope this brief tutorial proved useful for you. If you want to accomplish some really impressive things with Premiere Pro, then you can explore some of my other videos as well.